Some performances don't just entertain, they leave scars. These are the moments where actors pushed past technique and turned pain, fear, and vulnerability into something unforgettable. Olivia Colman reveals a side of herself so raw, it's almost overwhelming. In Tyrannosaur, she plays the owner of a secondhand shop defined by kindness and quiet endurance. Beneath that gentle exterior, her character is trapped in a marriage marked by abuse, slowly pushed toward an emotional breaking point. The film is bleak and unflinching, and Colman meets that tone with complete commitment. She balances warmth, fear, hope, and devastation without ever losing credibility. The performance exposes layers of pain and resilience, marking a dramatic turning point that showcased the full depth of her abilities. Mads Mikkelsen puts himself through emotional devastation and never once looks away. In The Hunt, he plays a kind-hearted kindergarten teacher whose life collapses after a false accusation of sexual abuse spreads through his community. The story follows the relentless witch hunt that isolates him from friends, neighbors, and any sense of normalcy. Mikkelsen approaches the role with extreme restraint, letting despair build quietly through subtle expressions and controlled behavior. That restraint makes his later emotional eruptions feel devastatingly real. The performance tracks the destruction of an innocent man with unflinching honesty, delivering a portrayal so committed it becomes almost unbearable to watch. Al Pacino followed up one of cinema's most iconic roles with something even more unhinged. In Dog Day Afternoon, he plays a desperate man at the center of an unorthodox heist that spirals wildly out of control. The performance is defined by manic energy, emotional volatility, and raw intensity that never settles into comfort. Much of the dialogue was improvised within the script's structure, giving Pacino room to sound spontaneous and painfully real. The result is a performance that feels alive moment to moment, capturing desperation, chaos, and humanity in equal measure, and standing as one of the most intense roles of his career. Jack Nicholson didn't just become a star, he became the face of a cultural shift. In 5 Easy Pieces, he plays a blue-collar working man who abandoned a privileged upbringing, carrying both rebellion and quiet tragedy in equal measure. The character's rough exterior hides a deeply relatable inner conflict, and Nicholson leans fully into that tension. His performance captures the restless, defiant spirit running through American society at the time. That mix of callousness and vulnerability reshaped what leading performances could look like, helping define the tone of American cinema throughout the 1970s. Samuel L. Jackson turns a hitman into the soul of an entire movie. In Pulp Fiction, he plays Jules, a professional killer moving through the film with calm, controlled intensity and total confidence. Jules always seems to have the upper hand, which makes his near-death experience deeply unsettling for him. Instead of breaking the character, that moment becomes a crossroads, pushing him into an existential crisis. Jackson carries this shift with controlled rage and unexpected empathy, especially during his final confrontation with petty criminals. The balance makes Jules unforgettable in a film packed with iconic characters. Philip Seymour Hoffman pushes himself to an almost unbearable edge and never pulls back. In Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, he plays one half of a pair of brothers dealing with the catastrophic fallout of a failed robbery of their parents' jewelry store. As the situation spirals, his character becomes increasingly frantic, volatile, and desperate. The film relentlessly tightens the screws, and Hoffman meets that pressure with a performance defined by manic energy and raw intensity. Every scene feels combustible, as he embodies a man collapsing under guilt, fear, and self-destruction, delivering one of the most extreme performances of his career. Robert Redford stepped into a role that quietly changed his entire career. In Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, he plays the Sundance Kid, the lethal and reserved half of a legendary outlaw duo. While Butch Cassidy provides the charm, Sundance brings controlled intensity and deadly focus, creating a perfect balance between the two characters. Redford's calm presence and understated danger give the film its edge, elevating the duo's chemistry into something iconic. The character became so inseparable from Redford's identity that it later inspired the name of the Sundance Film Festival, cementing this role as his defining breakthrough. Brad Dourif makes one of the most devastating performances in the film almost quietly. In One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he plays Billy Bibbit, a young mental hospital patient defined by a stutter, visible innocence, and overwhelming inner turmoil. Surrounded by larger, more dominant personalities, Billy's vulnerability slowly comes into focus as the story unfolds. Dourif's performance is restrained rather than showy, but it carries enormous emotional weight, especially as Billy's struggle reaches its tragic conclusion. Despite being his very first film role, the performance earned Dourif the only Oscar nomination of his career. Paul Newman takes a familiar rebel and reveals something far more vulnerable underneath. In Cool Hand Luke, he plays Luke, a man locked in constant conflict with rigid authority and institutional control. Newman leans into the effortless charm audiences expect, but layers it with quiet sadness and emotional depth that slowly surfaces over time. Luke feels endlessly defiant, yet never simple or one-note. The character keeps revealing new sides the longer you watch, making his rebellion feel deeply personal rather than performative. Newman's performance grounds the film's anti-establishment spirit in genuine human feeling, turning Luke into one of the most emotionally resonant characters of his career. Viola Davis took a role she already mastered and pushed it even further. In Fences, she plays a woman whose quiet, subservient presence often fades into the background as family tensions simmer. That restraint is intentional. Davis allows the character to hold everything inside until the moments when it all erupts. When those scenes arrive, the emotional force is overwhelming, instantly shifting the balance of the entire film. Having previously performed the role on stage, she used the screen version as a chance to refine every detail. The result is a performance so powerful, it outshines everyone around her and becomes the film's emotional core. Chiwetel Ejiofor shoulders unimaginable suffering and never lets the weight slip. In 12 Years a Slave, he plays Solomon Northup, a free man violently forced into slavery in the antebellum South. The role demands a sweeping emotional journey, and Ejiofor commits fully to every stage of it. He captures fear, resilience, despair, and quiet endurance as Solomon's life is systematically stripped away. The performance is devastating without ever feeling exaggerated, grounding the story's brutality in lived emotion. Through restraint and raw vulnerability, Ejiofor turns a tragic true story into an unforgettable portrait of survival. Song Kang-ho proves you don't need the loudest moments to leave the deepest impression. In Parasite, he plays the patriarch of a struggling family scheming their way out of poverty. The film is built as a true ensemble, yet his performance quietly anchors everything. Without dominating scenes or dialogue, Song Kang-ho fully disappears into the role, changing his mannerisms, presence, and emotional rhythm to fit the character. You never feel like you're watching an actor performing, only a man adapting to survive. That subtle commitment allows him to stand out naturally in a cast filled with unforgettable performances. Steve McQueen doesn't demand attention, he naturally pulls it toward him. In The Great Escape, he plays Captain Virgil Hiltz, better known as the Cooler King, a rebellious POW defined by effortless charm and quiet defiance. The film is packed with major stars and sprawling storylines, yet McQueen consistently rises above the ensemble without overpowering it. His laid-back confidence and magnetic presence turn even small moments into highlights. Hiltz becomes the ultimate expression of McQueen's cool, rebel persona, anchoring a massive cast while remaining the character audiences remember most long after the escape is over. John Cazale turned being overlooked into something unforgettable. In The Godfather Part 2, he plays Fredo Corleone, the family's weakest link and quiet outsider. In the first film, Fredo fades into the background, but that changes completely in the sequel when his role is expanded. Cazale delivers a natural, understated performance that slowly builds toward one explosive turning point. His emotional outburst toward his younger brother Michael reveals years of resentment, insecurity, and pain in a single moment. In a saga filled with iconic scenes, that confrontation stands as one of its most devastating performances. Kim Min-hee turns mystery itself into a performance. In The Handmaiden, she plays Lady Hideko, a character who appears delicate, powerful, and unreadable all at once. The story unfolds through constant twists, and Hideko's true intentions remain elusive for much of the film. Kim Min-hee balances fragility and control, sometimes in the same moment, making it impossible to fully grasp where the character stands. That complexity gives her the richest role in an already strong ensemble, allowing her to command attention without ever revealing too much. The result is a performance defined by precision, restraint, and layered deception. Payman Mahdi carries the quiet weight of an entire family falling apart. In A Separation, he plays the family patriarch caught between a collapsing marriage, responsibility for an elderly parent with Alzheimer's, and a growing moral crisis that refuses easy answers. As pressures close in from every direction, his character searches desperately for clarity while trying not to betray his own values. The film withholds certainty, forcing every moment to be filtered through subjective truth, and Mahdi grounds that ambiguity with restless urgency. His performance turns frustration, confusion, and moral strain into something painfully human and impossible to ignore. Imelda Staunton builds a character from nothing and makes it feel devastatingly real. In Vera Drake, she plays an unassuming housewife who secretly performs illegal abortions in the UK at a time when the practice was outlawed. The role was created entirely through months of improvisation, with Staunton working from a blank canvas to develop the character's full life history and every line of dialogue. That process results in a performance that feels completely natural and grounded. As Vera's life collapses for actions she believes are right, Staunton's restraint and authenticity turn the character's destruction into something quietly heartbreaking.